All right, good morning, good morning. At least if it's morning by you, it's morning by me. Welcome to Pianist Academy and to another live stream. So great to be with you all this morning. I'm in Colorado Springs. Of course, as always, I've got my coffee, ready to tackle some great music this morning. and hopefully get to a bunch of questions later on today, too. So I see we already have Sir Wolseley in the house. Awesome. Welcome, Sir Wolseley. You're going to be the first person we talk about today because Sir Wolseley submitted a video for us to go through, a little Satie. So we're going to talk about that pretty quick here. Just want to say hello to everybody. If you haven't dropped your name in the chat, just say hi, say where you're from. And yeah, as soon as we get through the first two pieces that are viewer submissions today, so Satie and then a little bit of Beethoven later on, then we'll get into the Q&A section. So you can even feel free while we're going through that stuff if you want to drop a question in the chat. Oh, hey, Louise. Great. Thank you. Thank you for the comment about last night's show. If you didn't know, I did a live stream on my other channel last night. Gosh, that was only like a little more than 12 hours ago. So I'll do some more, and I'll keep letting you know here on this channel if more are coming up. So the best place to find that out is over in the community tab on the channel page. So, and good morning, Haydar. Good to see you. Haydar is the second viewer submission. Haydar is playing some Beethoven. So why don't we just jump right in? So I've tried to have both the videos. Oh, Bedlington Groomer, hello. Hey, Wendy, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, well, I'll be in touch, Wendy, and it won't be the only show. You didn't miss the only one. I'll do some more, so I'll let you know about those when they happen. Haydar, good evening from Baghdad. Awesome, awesome. It's so great to have people from all over the world that we get together and we talk about music, so really, really cool. So jumping back to the masterclass part of the day that we're going to start with, I have tried to have both the videos that I'm going to play for you and a little bit of sheet music to show you as we talk through things. I don't know if that's going to match Sir Wolseley, like what you've been reading, but it'll be pretty close. It'll be pretty close, I hope. But we'll chat about that as we get there. So, okay, without further ado, let me just change over some things on my computer and we'll start those videos up. So, Sir Wolseley played for us, I think it was the first half of Satie's Gymnopédie number 1. So we're going to jump in with that and take a listen to his performance and then chat about it. So here we go. Hey, good morning, Jackie. Okay, cool. I think that's where you stopped, sir. Yeah, that is where you stopped. Great. That's the first half of the performance, first half of the piece. Let's put some clapping in the chat for Sir Wolseley. Nice job. Very nice job. So just to remind all the viewers here, I think you've been playing for, did you just start this year, Sir Wolseley? It hasn't even been a year, I don't think, right? So drop that in the chat. And I know we've talked a little bit about Satie before, so I'm not going to do... Awesome, yeah. Thanks, Hadar, for the clapping. Yes, give it up. So we're not going to do a big dive into Satie again, because we did that last time we talked about it. But first off, Sir Wolseley, really nice with the bridge and the hand position and everything. 8 months ago, you say, sort of. So great. It's less than a year. Really, really nice work so far. Yeah. I love the bridge and the structure you've got in the hand here. That's really nice. So we're going to keep that up for sure. In both hands, you've got a really nice bridge. Just say that you've got it if you know what I'm talking about. Especially if you watched other videos on the channel, you probably know what I mean when I say bridge. If you don't, I'm happy to clarify. Just let me know. So that's great. I really like the structure. It's giving us a lot of control. So that's going to play into part of what we're going to talk about in the next little bit. So you asked in the email that you sent me if there was any kind of technical stuff to work on or to watch out for. Right now, everything's looking pretty good. We'll have to see when you start to, need to use things faster, like playing scales or more faster jumping around. We'll see what the next challenge is going to be for you. But for right now, things are looking pretty good. Really nice structure, really nice control. Awesome. Yes. Nice hand position. So great. That's a big congratulations, because it's going to allow you to do some of the stuff that we're going to dive into as we talk through the piece today. So first off, let me just throw the sheet music on the screen. There we go. Okay, so Sir Wolseley, let me know if you have, well, let's say most of what's on the page here. Do you have the tempo marking? You should have lent at Dolorou. That would be great. Do you have the dynamics that are marked? Like, I can't highlight just a single part, but do you have pianissimo with the hairpins, starting in 5, 6, 7, and things like that? And the other dynamics throughout. So drop that in the chat if you've got that. First off, lent at Dolorou. Jackie, I know you know French. Am I pronouncing that right? Louise also, you could tell me if I'm getting that close. Dolorou is, what I looked up is that it's pain. It's painfully, maybe sorrowfully, with soreness, but like an emotional soreness, not a physical one. So if we're thinking about that and how we have to shape the melody and play everything that's in this piece, it's interesting because we've got these major 7 chords, and major is usually refers to something that's relatively happy. Jackie says close. Awesome. I'll take close. So when we get into where the melody starts, we need to be really careful that, one, we're still playing pianissimo, right? Because that's going to be, with all of these major 7 chords that our ear is kind of used to hearing as more joyful, or at least like positively contemplative, not painful. It's not going to be the harmony that gives us that feeling of sorrow, the feeling of pain. Louise says your French pronunciation is better than my Spanish. Well, I'll take that because I think my Spanish is probably pretty good. We'll see. We don't get to say things in Spanish very often in music. It's usually French and Italian. So anyway, melody. Melody is going to be the thing that we need to create that shape and that emotion with. So even without maybe taking the jumps in the left hand, because that takes a lot of thought to navigate that and place our hand in the right place. Maybe, Sir Wolseley, try just playing the bass note so we have some kind of texture, and then really focus on shaping. And even if that's a little bit difficult to focus fully on the melody, just take the melody. Can we make a really nice crescendo like it's marked in the score? Can we have a nice rounding off at a tapering at the end of the phrase? Let me show you that again. Right, so the melody that starts in 5, the stem ups. This is a little bit too aggressive, but we need to make that nice long crescendo. And then it's really only that one pitch, the A in measure 8, that we pull back and that we kind of taper the phrase off. So focus on that shape and focus on the sorrow that you can find in the melody, because, like I said, it's not going to come from these chords probably. Now, speaking of that, the chords we're going to need to keep as soft and quiet as we possibly can. This is where that really strong bridge and structure come into play, Sir Wolsey, because now that you have that shape, we can use that shape to make sure that we are fully, efficiently translating our energy, the energy that we're creating with the mechanism, the arm, the hand, the fingers, that all of it goes into the key. So, when the bridge is really strong, we can really accurately control a very minimal amount of energy, right? Because we're not losing any in the rest of whatever we're working with, right? The arm, the elbow, the wrist, the fingers and the knuckles and all the knuckles. If we find that, you know, things are collapsed or they're kind of opposite of how they should be, where the bridge is down instead of up, or we press too much with tips of fingers. You're not doing any of this, Sir Wolsey, but for others, if you see yourself playing and you recognize this kind of thing, if there's a pressing, especially I see a lot of first year, second year, even third year students, the last knuckle kind of flexes backwards. It doesn't flex, it just goes backwards because there isn't the control in the tendons, right? As soon as that happens, or any of our mechanism breaks or collapses, we lose control over the energy we're putting into the keys. And it actually makes playing softly extremely hard because we have no idea, because we don't know how much the structure is going to break. We have no idea when we attack a note, play a note, how much that we think we're doing is actually going to translate into the keys and into the piano, right? So anyway, that's a long story. Sir Wolsey, I think you've got this all worked out. But for others that haven't, you can pay attention to those couple little things. So, when the left hand is playing these chords, we're going to keep that really, really nice bridge. And when you're playing this softly, you can almost think about, try this, Sir Wolsey. You could think about, because we don't have to move real fast, and we want something very, very quiet. These chords, I'll show you with my right hand because it's a little easier to see, but we can play all of these with just kind of an attack that starts from the elbow, but is different than how I describe it in other places on the channel. So instead of moving fingers and attacking with fingers or attacking with wrist, which is usually all three of these are a part of good technique, right? When we're trying to play super softly, we can keep everything just in, we can, let's say, simplify the mechanism. We have kind of one hinging point, and everything else is going to stay really structured. And if we have that, so I'm trying not to move my wrist so much. I'm trying not to play too much with fingers, yeah? Yes, there's catching up on what Bachward's Fellow says. Hey, good morning, by the way. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, parking, he says, parking it over your keys and then giving a wrist drop. That can work too. That takes a little bit more control over the wrist and what we've got going on. So try both of those, Sir Wolsey. You might first try just simplifying the mechanism. So we have one motion we're dealing with, and it's a down motion from the elbow, right? And then if we want a little bit more freedom, we can also add a down motion with the wrist. But when we add that, it's going to be harder to control. We're going to have to really practice. Yeah, so Sir Wolsey, you say, I have to keep working on the pianissimo. I still struggle on an acoustic piano, and the digital is easier. Yeah, an acoustic piano is going to really, really depend on the shape the piano is in to get those super, super softs to come out. Okay, so that we covered two things. Keeping this, the chords, all very, very quiet. And by the way, I like what you did. You took the beginning where the right hand isn't playing anything. You can absolutely play the chords with the right hand. And then we get into the melody. Right? So use the melody to create that sorrow. Next thing, we're going to have two things coming up real quick here. Next thing, if you can you speed your tempo up a little bit? Can you speed it up and still find all of the left hand changes? Let's go back and actually, let me play a little bit from the beginning of your performance, and we can maybe see what the metronome marking is and go from there. All right, here we go. So I've got that clocked in at about 60 beats per minute. And what I would suggest you could try to work up to is about 80 to 85 beats per minute. So right? That's going to make it a lot easier to connect the melody and phrase it the way we really need to. Otherwise, it gets a little choppy, right? So you say, I used to play it a bit faster, but recently I like it a bit slower. Yes, you're trying not to fail. Well, you know, we all, isn't that everybody's life mission? Especially at the piano, right? So that's great, and that's great. It's always, in performance, that's actually great to have that the control to take things a bit slower. Great, that's a great thing. So, yeah, if you can work on maybe speeding up and still being comfortable and still maintaining, I think you slowed down because you like the emotional feel of it, right? And the expressiveness. If we can have that translate to just a little bit faster tempo, all those phrases are going to be so much easier to make. And those are really going to convey the sadness and what we want to accomplish here. So, let me jump over to the sheet music one more time. Okay, in measure 7, 8, 9. So that's right there, if you can see that. All right, measure 9. We have something interesting and actually quite difficult to play. We have a melody note in the right hand, and then there's this. We have the same pitch, right? Still in the same hand. So I'm going to highlight two ways that this happens in the music. First off, we have this nice melody. It resolves, so 7 is the high point, right? 8. And then we could even say 9. 9's the resolution. And then we've got forte. So in this bar, I really suggest that you really differentiate the dynamic between the end of the phrase that we're making with the melody, 7, 8, 9, right? so that we really hear that this is a new layer, it's something new. It's not actually still the kind of complacent and rocking motion that we get, but instead we have a downbeat and then, yeah. One thing to also notice about this is that the upper note, well, the F sharp, right, that's the end of the melody, has a tie for 4 measures. And also included above that tie is also a slur. Let me show you again. So we've got a tie on the F sharp here. And of course above that the whole phrase has a slur. So we can see that the F sharp is really the end of the phrase, and it goes another couple bars. If you can, after you play the melody, continue to hold the F sharp from the loud chords, the forte chords, across the pedal change. And then we can really hear that that F sustains. And because we're lifting the pedal, even though it's a part of the chords that are kind of the harmony texture, they're separate from the melody, it really, those chords help that melody line to sustain all the way 4 measures. If we didn't have that, it's lost as soon as we put that pedal change in when the harmony changes, right? So that's one thing to watch out for. Let's see. There's another time this happens, or something similar. It's not quite the same. So let's switch back to the sheet music. So here, I'm looking at the first line of this page. So measures 36, 37, 38. And we've got melody is the F sharp, and then right hand takes a little bit of these chords, right? So, Sir Wolseley, the melody is that's it, and then the phrase ends. The really important thing to notice is that the quarter notes here, the quarter notes in 37, where the right hand and the left hand are playing together, those are a part of the harmonic texture, and they're not melody notes. So for example, the melody doesn't go, right? It doesn't go to the D either. So instead, we need or maybe I could have given a little bit more to the C natural at the end of the phrase. But be really aware of where those stem ups are and the stem downs. So when the hands share these, this comes back in a lot of other French Impressionist music too, where hands have to share textures or we pass things back and forth. It's quite difficult to have the right hand change to a completely different idea, right? Matching what the left hand is doing, especially after we're thinking melody, bring the melody out, but then we can't. We can't on those quarters, right? Okay, I think that sums up my comments for you, Sir Wolseley. Let me play just a little bit of it again and see if anything comes to mind. So there's a couple of things to look out for. They go right along with what we just talked about. At the end of that phrase, we've got one melody note, and then the right hand probably has, but that's not the melody, even though the register is higher than the melody is, right? And then a new harmony, we finally get minor. Yeah, that's where I would start, so Wolseley. You can always go back then and kind of watch this section of it where I perform through that, and you can hear some of the things that we just talked about. You can hear a little bit of a performance of that. Hadar says it's one of those pieces that looks easy, but it's actually anything but easy. That is actually true. That's very true, Sir Wolseley. Yeah, and what Bachward's fellow says, the sterling clarity and nuance is not easy. The notes themselves may be, but the interpretation is not. Yeah, the interpretation is going to, it's great. It's great. It's going to challenge you to really, really dive deep and to have that control over line and phrase and texture and all those things. So it's really, really beautiful stuff. And Sir Wolseley, for being 8 months into your piano journey, you were doing a fantastic job. So great job. Keep it up. And I hope you can, take some of these things and start to incorporate them in this piece and in other pieces. Always keep looking for the stem directions that tell us what to bring out and what not to bring out. And when we look at, the tempo markings or any other kind of modifiers, whether they're in the tempo marking or throughout the piece, like dolce is a common one, how do we affect our playing? Or what layer, what part of the music is going to be most successful, right, to incorporate that type of feeling? Maybe it is all of it, but probably needs to be focused in one place, though. And for example, in this piece, we talked about the focus of the sorrow being simply in the melody line, and the rest of the time, unless it's marked forte, like the bar we talked about, right, we're keeping the texture really, really calm and just very pleasant. As far as an interpretation about rubato, I think Satie can go very different directions. I would probably lean toward, because there's so few notes, lean toward playing it mostly strictly in tempo, with not too much push and pull through a phrase. And that's something you're already leaning in that direction as it is, so that's great. You might be able to add a little bit of rubato, Sir Wolseley, but I wouldn't play it like a romantic line where there's a lot of push and pull. It doesn't make a lot of sense in a piece like this. And also knowing what we know about Satie, being kind of a composer of ambient music and music that puts us in a mood, right? We don't want to distract from that too much. We just want to convey that space and that mood in the playing. So great job, great job. Awesome, Sir Wolseley, yay. Looking forward to next time you submit something. So if you're here, please give the video a thumbs up if you can. If you haven't already, I know a bunch of you have, 7 of you had, so thank you so much for that. Let's see, Bedlington Groomer. I'll answer this before we jump into Hadar's submission. So Bedlington Groomer says, Charles, what does push and pull through a phrase mean? Let me give you an example. Push and pull is, if we think about tempo, and tempo is steady, right? I'll even demonstrate with Satie here, even though this is something I wouldn't do with this piece. If we have a steady tempo of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Now, let's say I interpret this the way I told Sir Wolseley not to, and I push through the phrase. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if I'm counting all those beats, you can hear where the phrase pushes, we speed up, and where it pulls, we slow down. So usually push and pull and a term like rubato are going to be hand in hand, meaning the same kind of thing. But with push and pull, we can also, of course, isolate those words. So we can talk about pushing in a certain part of a phrase. And then any good rubato is going to have some kind of opposite to bring us back, right? If we just push all the time, we're going to end up at a faster tempo. A constant push is an accelerando, and a constant pull is a ritardando or a ritenuto, depending on what the composer's written, right? So when we combine the two, we're playing with the tempo marking, or the base tempo that we've given ourselves, and allowing ourselves to be flexible with it, right? So you can already hear there is that push and pull that I added, but I think we can all agree that that is too much for this piece in particular. So that would happen in other Beethoven, romantic composers, Chopin list, neo-romantic composers for sure. There would be very little of that in, let's say, Bach, and probably almost none in Bach, depending on your view on that, and maybe little bits in like early classical composers like Mozart. So yeah, it really depends on the piece and the composers and the style and the context of where music and harmonic development was during the time the piece was written. Great. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking that, and hopefully that cleared it up for some other people too. So Woolsey, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Great. Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you, seeing your progress. So yeah, things are already looking better than the last time I saw you play. So awesome job, Sir Woolsey. Keep it up. Okay, Hadar, we're moving on to the Moonlight Sonata. All right. So Hadar, I asked Sir Woolsey to tell us how long he'd been playing. So Hadar, drop in the chat, how long have you been playing? And I also know, even though on your video you've got sheet music in front of you, you said you learned all of this without music. Because if I remember right, are you working on learning how to read music? Right? I think we talked about that, but it's not comfortable yet. Just, yeah, remind us in the chat how you feel about that, because learning the Moonlight Sonata without having the score, that's an accomplishment in itself. Yeah, backwards fellow, that's how you learn. I'm sure no one else here has ever made any mistakes. All right. Okay, here we go, Hadar. Ready? Moonlight Sonata, we'll listen through. I'll probably stop at some point in the middle of the movement, because there'll be plenty to talk about in the first page or two. And he says, to be honest, it took me 3 months to learn the piece without reading the score. Hey, that's okay. You've learned it, right? That's what matters. Okay, here we go. Let's stop there. That was the first statement of the main theme here. We'll have there's another little statement of that, and we get into some other stuff. But for right now, let's talk about that. So everybody, let's give Hadar some nice clapping in the chat. That was a nice job, Hadar, and congratulations. Is this maybe the first time you've put your music out there for other people? Let us know, because that is also a huge, that's a huge step to take. So good for you, and thanks for sending the video over. There are a couple things, there's one, maybe two things I want to talk about before we get into comments on your performance in particular, and that's just about the piece in general. Moonlight Sonata, the sonata didn't get the name Moonlight until actually after Beethoven died. The piece was also written by Beethoven as he was rapidly losing his hearing. So he had he could hear very little of the notes that he wrote when he was writing this. He could hear very little. And it wasn't very long after that that he completely lost his hearing. So that's a cool thing just to know about the sonata. So it was nicknamed Moonlight by a critic, I think, or I think it was a critic in Germany that talked about how the critic thought that the piece reminded him of moonlight hitting the was a place in Lucerne. I think it was a Lake Lucerne. So that was one person's interpretation of what the piece was about. And that name, which didn't get applied until 5 years after Beethoven passed away, has stuck with the piece, and now everybody calls it the Moonlight Sonata. What Beethoven actually called this is a sonata quasi una fantasia. So it's a fantasy piece. So what is that about? He also wrote it for his, we'll just say, the girl he wanted to be his girlfriend at the time, who was, I think, far younger than he was, and it never worked out. But so it's dedicated to her. So there's a whole lot of probably other emotion that's in this piece, other than just a nice contemplative, moonlit picture. One of the things, and this is so, as we've had kind of two, I think, sorrowful pieces that we're talking about today. The piece, for me, does not sound anything like Moonlight or a nighttime scene. It sounds like a very angst-filled it's almost like questioning. Right, and there's a little resolution, a little answer to our question, and then immediately we're going to question things again. Right? So I would say for Hadar to get into a little bit of interpretive type stuff as you continue to work through the piece, think about things that are different than just a moonlit scene or something like that. Think about some kind of emotional narrative about a possible relationship with someone else. So there are a lot of words we could apply to that. Sorrow, angst, pain, questioning, wondering. This piece doesn't have a lot of, there's not really a light at the end of the tunnel in the first movement. The second movement and the third movement obviously change that a lot, but we're only talking about the first movement today. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and let me pull the score up while I mention this. Okay, right at the top of the score, there's, on this one in particular, it's, I think, in Italian, but the words, here it says senza sordini, and in most scores it'll say senza sordino. That is actually a really interesting use of text, a text description. So sordino means different things to different instruments and at different time periods in music. For Beethoven, sordino, or the sordini, are the mutes, technically mutes, and in Beethoven's time, the mutes were the dampers in the piano. So this is simply saying, with the pedal. Use the pedal. Of course, we know that. We've listened to a lot of recordings of it. We know everybody uses a lot of pedal. But the words are very interesting. Now, let's say about 100 years, less than 100 years, 50 to 75 years after this, a lot of pianos, a lot of grand pianos in Europe, had actually a mute strip, a mute rail in the piano. And so sordino actually meant something completely different by the time, let's say, we reach like 1880 or so, 1890. Sordino actually meant use the mute rail in the piano. So a really, really famous example of this is in Debussy's Clair de Lune. Clair de Lune, right at the beginning of the piece, says con sordino. Well, that no longer means dampers, and it doesn't mean with the pedal. Con sordino, in Beethoven's words, would have meant don't use the pedal. It would have meant leave the dampers down. Leave the dampers down on the strings. And obviously we know in Debussy's time, we would never play Clair de Lune without pedal. So that the meaning of the same terms changes, and that's the one thing I wanted to point out. So sordino, whenever you see that in Beethoven's music, means use the pedal. When you see it in French Impressionist music especially, it means actually use the mute rail, which we don't have, except I think by one piano manufacturer today, Steingraber, and I think Steingraber and Sons, not Steinway, different company. And they actually have a mechanism on the front of the piano that you can pull and physically put in a mute rail in between the hammers and the strings. And a lot of uprights have something like this. Upright pianos have your practice pedal, the middle pedal, which drops a piece of felt in between. For most people, that's the closest we're going to get to like a real mute rail. Anyway, okay, I digress. But that's just really fun stuff that I think is so important to know about music and how the same words mean different things in different times and to different composers. Okay, Hadar, let's dive back into your performance. So we talked right at the beginning about Sir Wolseley's bridge, and I'd like to bring the same thing up for you. We need to work on feeling a bit more height in the large knuckles. And we can start by feeling, Hadar, I'll explain this today, but you can also go back and you can watch some of my videos if you haven't already on posture, because I go into detail about this kind of stuff too. But Hadar, if you, even sitting down or especially standing up, shake out your hand, shake out your arm, and let your hand come to rest. Don't do anything with it, right? And now lift it and see the shape that it makes. This curved shape, right? Now, if we don't stretch or do anything, and we just put it on the keys, that's the shape that we want our hand to try to maintain as we play. And so, Hadar, when I see you play, I see very flat, and the bridge, the big knuckles, are really low. And sometimes, if it's a stretch, they're even kind of collapsing. I see it not so much with the right hand, but especially with the left hand playing the octaves. These knuckles are they've fallen in a little bit. So as we work on playing softer and softer, we're going to want to make sure that this bridge stays raised. So anytime you're practicing, simple, all you have to do to remind yourself of the body position to be in is shake things out, let it come to rest, and then without engaging anything except the upper arm, put our hand on the piano, on the keys, remind ourselves of that shape. Now, can we play using that shape, let's say the first measure, especially the right hand here? So Hadar, when we finish the stream today, go back and watch this particular part and see the shape that my hand is in here. And then compare that to the video you sent. And I think you'll see that you tend to be down here, and I'm up here, right? And if the flatter we are to the point of this being, the bridge kind of being broken, the less control we're going to have over playing really softly. So that'd be the first thing. And a tip I can give you to help kind of feel where the bridge is to, I've talked to a couple of my students about this recently, and I may have even mentioned it on a stream months ago. But if we take our hand, and we know that the top knuckles, right, we can also see them on the other side of the hand. And we can feel little bumps, right? So we can take, let's say, under the second finger and under the fourth finger, we can put just 2 fingers there. We're not going to push really. Now, if we turn our hand over and we push gently, very gently up with our left hand, in this case, we can feel that as I push up, it tends to curl my hand in, right? So if I have my hand is stretched and I push, everything curls in and the bridge goes up, right? This is a great reminder of where we want the hand to be. And we can even do this if we're working on, let's say, the first bar. We can take the left hand, just before we start playing, let's get our hand in position, it's not really a push, it's just like a sensation of, there's something under here, right? There's something under the hand that's helping remind me to keep it in this position. Now, playing through this is going to be really difficult, so I might not necessarily recommend that. But after you have found this position, take your left hand away and try to keep your right hand there and feel what it's like. We talk a lot on this channel about relaxing and letting go of tension and things like that, and that those things are really important. The ironic thing, and one of the things that makes teaching piano, teaching any instrument so difficult, including voice and other things like that, is that everything that we do requires muscle activation, right? And it requires a foundation or a setup around the muscles that we need to activate. So if we say we're going to play with complete relaxation, well, a lot of people have a problem with that, because if everything's relaxed, the body is just limp. There's nothing happening, right? So there's this fine line between knowing the bits of our body and of the playing mechanism that are active, right, that we are in control over and that we can feel that, versus, let's say, things like clenching or having too much tension. And it's not something, Hadar, that you're going to find an answer to necessarily in a week or a month or even a year, but it's something that we're kind of always on the road toward. How can we relax the body, the places in the body that we don't need, while continuing to activate the places in the body that we do need? So start that journey. So this is the first place we're going to start. That is feeling the activeness in the bridge, feeling the structure there, and what it takes to maintain that while we play. But at the same time, not letting that turn into a clenched position, which is engaging all the muscles up here and even a little bit into the upper arm, right? And also, one thing that I notice, I can't see your upper body in the video, Hadar, but there are a lot of people that as they learn more and more about piano, they may have let go of some things in the hand and some things in the arm, and then the shoulders go up. And then it takes time to realize that those need to come back down and relax also. We can't be playing with shoulders up here, because that's actually translating also into negative tension down the rest of the arm. So long story short, yes, we're going to work on finding the bridge and finding that good activity, and then in the meantime, we'll still work on letting go. Second big thing that I want to talk to you about, Hadar, is the rhythm of the melody. So let's go back to the sheet music. Okay, as we look at, right here, we have pianissimo over the bar, and the melody is written as a dotted eighth followed by a 16th, right? I would really suggest feeling this not as an actual dotted eighth plus 16th, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then feeling 4 against 3. That's not what this piece is about, right? These are all triplets. Now, if we take our group of triplets, dun, 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 3 notes per beat. 3 notes per beat, right? Dun, dun, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, can we subdivide that? Subdivide means add beats in, right? Can we add an even number of beats in where we're counting 2 beats per note that we're playing? Da, 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 da. It's easier to kind of say that than counting to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But if we do that, we're going to have a much closer place where we're going to put the melody note. So the melody is going to come after the 3rd note of the triplet, and it's going to come on the 6th subdivision. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah? So, for now, I would say, Haydar, just work on that. We really want to line up the melody note, not too close to the triplets, but closer to the next measure. And there are places that we can go after this. There are musical things that we can choose. So if you go and listen to recordings, you might hear some people really delay the downbeat, or they delay the third note of the melody. 1, 2, 3, da. Right? And that's a musical choice, and that has to do with rubato. But first, before we get there, I would love for you to feel those subdivisions and feel exactly when we're putting that melody in line with the textural figure that the right hand's also playing, that it's got a really precise place that we can put that, right? So find that precise place first. Then we can go and we can manipulate it, we can stretch it and make it even more musical. Now, if that happens to be difficult, and I think I noticed some things in your playing that were that it may be difficult to re-articulate that note twice, right? Try. Let me switch cameras here to show you. Try. I'll do it up here so you can see a little bit better. And when we're playing the melody, let the thumb come off. So the hand is more relaxed, right? We've kind of contracted from the octave shape down to a smaller shape. And then, on the short note, our hand hasn't spread back out yet, but it spreads out when we play the octave that's in the next bar. Okay? So we have contract, and then play the quick note, and then expand. You can even practice just playing the 16th note at the end of the bar, expanding into the octave, and showing you again over here. So always going from this point, the bridge is still intact, so there's that activity there, but the lateral spread of the hand, right? We're not keeping that tension there because we don't need to hold on to the rest of the notes, right? When you see people, it's really difficult to watch performers and really understand what's going on inside the hand and everything, because probably, guaranteed, when you watch a concert pianist play this, they probably are going to stay stretched out, right? But know that over years or decades of practice, they've learned how to stay stretched but also relax at the same time. So don't try to mimic that yet, right? It's going to take some time to get there. So we can do a little bit of that by exaggerating the contraction of the hand in and the expansion back out. So I would do that in combination with feeling these subdivisions all over the piece, because that is such a part of the main theme of the movement, right? Is the dotted 8th note followed by 16th note. Let's see. So Haydar, you said you have tension because you fear making mistakes, and Bedlington Groomer said, so difficult to not to have tension when you're worried about mistakes that haven't even happened yet. Yeah. You know, the beauty of things that we talk about here is that I feel like a lot of us, we're wanting to learn music for the fun of it and for the joy of it. And maybe at some point we'll share it with some people, but there's not going to be that pressure of like performing for an audience or anything like that. So take comfort in that and know that you're here because you love doing it, right? That's why you started playing in the first place. Everybody that's here, that's why you started in the first place. You love doing it. That's why you're sticking with it. So remind yourself of that when you start to, especially if it happens while you're recording something, just say, you know what? Mistakes, they're going to happen. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not picking on the notes you got wrong, Haydar. There's no point in doing that. You know what they are. I know what they are. And you'll fix them at some point. That's great. Right? But in the meantime, yeah, just remember we play music because we love it, and we play it because it makes us feel something. It makes us feel alive in all kinds of different ways. And sure, mistakes, especially in practice, I think I saw Bachward's fellow say something about this earlier. Mistakes in practice that's the reason why we practice. Yeah? We find out what we're going to screw up, and then we learn how to not screw it up. That's it. Of course, it goes a lot deeper than that, but that's why we practice, right? And if we didn't make mistakes, we wouldn't need to practice. So anyway, no, mistakes are just part of the process, and if you stop being afraid of them, let them happen, you're actually going to learn faster if you let the mistakes happen and then learn how to fix them than if we go and try not to let any of them happen, right? And then we don't know if we have caused things that are actually not a part of what we've learned. Because when we're learning without that pressure, or if we don't feel that pressure of playing it perfectly versus messing up or whatever that is, it's really hard to tell if we have caused the mistake to happen because of our added tension, or what our brain is thinking about because it's not focused on the music, it's focused on not screwing up. Or is it a part of something that we've practiced? So let's eliminate the variable that we can, right? Let's eliminate the variable of just being worried about it. I know that's easier said than done. But if we eliminate that, then we can know when we have messed something up, there's a reason that we can actually find and tackle in technique or something that we can fix, right? The last thing, Hadar, it is really, really an accomplishment to learn this kind of stuff without the score. And I hope that you are continuing to kind of match up what you found on YouTube because you learned it from the following notes, right? Continue to match that up with the notes on the page. This is not at all, you hear this played by relatively early pianists. It's definitely like an intermediate sonata. So, hey Diego, good to see you, man. So it's, the sonata is, especially for a beginner pianist, it is a very advanced piece. And just like the Satie that we talked about right at the beginning of today, there aren't that many notes to play compared to some other music, but it's so difficult to convey the musicality and the meaning behind the piece. So both you and Sir Wolseley, you have picked some extraordinarily difficult pieces to communicate music with. And so take comfort in that too. Know that it's a journey, and I'll commend both of you for learning this type of stuff, because now that once you know the notes, you're going to be able to come back to this for years and years and years. And I guarantee you will always find musically, there will always be something new to think about. And that's one of the things that makes the Moonlight Sonata, for example, such an amazing piece of music, is that we can always find new meaning in the notes, even though it's a lot of repeated things and even though it's fairly predictable, right? Bachward's fellow, you say, one of the biggest problems you have with sight reading is because your first piano teacher stopped every time you made a mistake. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's rough. Okay, one more thing about the Moonlight Sonata. We didn't get to hear Hadar's performance of this bit, but I'm going to show you the sheet music again, and we're going to look at measures 32 and on. So here we go. Oh, whoops. Here we go. Of course, the score I'm showing you on the computer doesn't have measure numbers. Okay, so here we are. It is, if you can see my cursor there, I'm sort of kind of drawing a circle around it. Right. 32. Good, okay. So Hadar, I have a question for you. When you learn stuff like that, I know you didn't look at the sheet music, but you recognize this by the sound of it, right? When you learn spots like that, did you just learn what notes to put your finger on, or did you learn more than that? Do you see the pattern of notes that your hand is playing? There's not a wrong answer here. I just am looking to see what you discovered as you were learning and memorizing this. So let me know. And as you're letting me know that, Sir Wolseley asked, Hadar, so hold on, Sir Wolseley. I'm going to come back to the Brahms exercises. Hadar, so you said yes. Does that mean, what kind of pattern did you see in this? And then, of course, in the next bar, too. Next bar. Right? So let me just give Hadar a chance to answer that. What I'm really what I'm getting at here, Hadar, is instead of individual notes, if you stack everything in the measure, so take all of the separate notes that you've got, or maybe just start with the first 3 or 4, play them together, find out, identify what is going on, what's the pattern here. And there are a couple ways we can do this. We could say, first off, in this measure of music, or in this little segment, every one of these notes the right hand has to play, if we stack them, is a minor third apart, an interval of a minor third apart. If we stack them all up. Now, of course, we don't play them like that. We play them alternating. But what you can start to think about, Hadar, is that this it actually makes what's called a diminished chord. It's a diminished 7 chord. And if you can see that pattern and see the distance the notes are away from each other, and then know when we get halfway through this measure or halfway through here, we're just repeating it. Might be with different fingers, but we've got 2 of the exact same sets of notes. First half of the bar, second half of the bar. Even in the next measure, we have something similar. It's no longer diminished chord, it's just a C sharp minor chord. Right? Then we go back and we have another diminished chord. Yeah, fully diminished. For those of you that know more about music theory, fully diminished 7. And then another fully diminished chord. So we can sum that up, and that can also help you remember kind of where things are going. And if you can see that kind of stuff, you can also translate that into the work you're doing reading off the page too. So when I see this, I actually see diminished harmony in the right hand, and then triad in inversion. Diminished harmony, diminished again. Now just reversing direction. Now we've got something new. Right? So that's something I have had a lot of students have trouble memorizing those couple bars. No, you didn't make a mistake, Hadar. You played all the right notes. I just wanted to know how you memorized them. So if it was just note by note, and now I'm trying to give you a tip to say, once you've got these, what else can we decipher about it? Yeah? You learned diminished chords from this run. Beautiful. That answers my question. So hopefully going through the process, it sounds like you've already gone through that process, and for others here that haven't, great. That's what I want to hear, Hadar. Now you can do them super easily. And now you know what a diminished chord is. Yeah. Now the next step, as you're looking at the music, you start to recognize also what they look like on the page, right? And then we can translate it that way. And then every little one of these things that we have a point that we can refer back to, whether it's a feeling on the piano or a tone, right, that we hear, or a combination, that can help inform us about how music is supposed to go, and it can help us read things a lot faster. So then they don't take so long to learn, right? And then, Hadar, you can start exploring more and more music more and more quickly. So I think that's where we're going to leave Moonlight Sonata today. I would love, Hadar, if you would submit another video. Jackie said, I always tripped over this part when I memorized the piece. That was actually exactly where I was going, because I've seen many students not remember how to play all the notes in those measures right in the middle of the piece. And I think it's because there isn't that understanding, the foundation of harmony and what's going on, that trips people up when they memorize. So Hadar, you say, I did everything the other way around and learned chords from this sonata. Well, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that. Okay, so Hadar, we're going to leave it there today, but I would love if you would submit another video, like in a month or two, working on that bridge position and on the melody, the dotted eighths with the sixteenths, and feeling those subdivisions that we talked about. Before I get over to Sir Wolseley's question, and especially now that we're pretty much done with the masterclass part of this. We spent an hour, but great. Well, thanks, Hadar. I appreciate it. Let me play a little bit of the Moonlight Sonata, and then, Hadar, you'll have another recording to kind of refer back to. I'll just play a little bit of the theme, maybe just on a page or so. And then I'll get to Sir Wolseley's question if we've got anything else to talk about today. I'd love to know. I'm not going to play the whole 4-bar intro. I'm just going to start with the measure where the melody comes in, but here we go. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Well, at least that gives you a kind of a one pass through, and then I would continue to build emotionally in the second time through the melody there. But great, thanks so much for the submission, Hadar. For all of you that are here, if you want to submit something, there's a link in the description below. You can send me an email with your own video, and we can do a masterclass segment on your playing. So I'd love to have more of those submissions. Hadar, this is your first one, so absolutely. Thank you for submitting, and I hope it was a big help to you today. Awesome, Hadar, I appreciate that. Thank you. So I was going to go back to Sir Wolseley's question. Do you use with your students the 51 Brahms exercises? You start with number 7 to strengthen the 4th finger. It's weaker than my 5th and messes up rhythm on faster pieces like arabesque. I really actually try to stay away from the Brahms 51 exercises. First off, Sir Wolseley, they're incredibly advanced. I've done maybe 3 or 4 of them in my own time studying. And usually the ones that my teacher would give me when I was younger had to do with practicing like dominant 7 arpeggios and practicing voicing notes in chords, like voicing notes in the middle of chords or at the top or at the bottom with one hand. And the rest of the book, this was, my teacher at the time was a Juilliard grad. We skipped the entire rest of the book. And he said, it's not necessary. We'll get everything else you can learn in the music itself. Or simply with scales. I got tested on scales every week. But we played a little bit of Czerny. We played no Hanon, and we only did like 4 of the Brahms exercises. Not the whole book. So, you say strengthening 4th finger. Let me actually, we're all here for another few minutes. So my book of Brahms, I think, is on my bookshelf. That's just over there. Let me grab it because I don't know exactly what's up with number 7. Let me look at number 7 in particular, and then I can have some actually really precise comments for you. You could tell how much this book has been used. It's like still like in new condition, and I've had it for 20 years. All right. Number 7. So, okay, this exercise is actually not about, number 4. Number 4. Okay, great. Well, I was going to say that exercise is not about strengthening 4. And okay, number 4, let's see. So, okay. Sir Wolseley, I would not recommend practicing this a whole lot, actually. It's a really, a lot of the exercises in here are a bit dangerous because they are going to require us to hold So exercise 4 is actually also not about strengthening 4 and 5. It's about using them to climb chromatically. Right? But it's not about having more control over 4 and 5. And the same thing, let's see, I'm assuming this switches. At some point. I'm looking for where it switches. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it switches to the other hand halfway through. Yeah. So it's about that legato motion. So in a sense, it's almost like a predecessor to Chopin's second etude, which is about climbing chromatically or somewhat melodically. Yeah, thanks, Sir Wolseley. So with 3, 4, and 5 in the Chopin's second etude. But in that etude, it's not about holding the pitches down. So this one it's not quite as dangerous as some of the other Brahms exercises. I say dangerous because in this book and also in the Docgnani exercise book, there are a lot of exercises that require us to hold a note while we do other things with the hand. And there is something to be gained from that. But Sir Wolseley, this isn't going to I don't think this exercise is going to really be beneficial to you until 2 things happen. One, you're playing pretty advanced repertoire that you need to have this kind of technical control for. And I think there's some time before we're going to get there. And the second thing is, it's dangerous to work on without a teacher because we really do not want to be pressing and holding 4 while we staccato with the other finger. And anytime we have exercises that hold us in, there's a real, in order to not let the hand come up when the other finger plays staccato, there is this unconscious, subconscious decision to have the finger push in while we staccato. Because otherwise, if we're just starting this and we don't feel that push in, the hand lifts. And it's really difficult without kind of constant checking in to see if, am I only using the weight of my arm, basically, after I attack the pitch? Am I only using the weight of my arm to hold that down? That's all I need. Yeah. So instead, let's see. Bachward's fellow he said just play ascending and descending triplets using 3rd and 4th fingers in every key, including harmonic minors. That'll help. And let me go back to what you said. Yeah. So what I would actually do, Sir Wolseley, instead of this, is I would play scales and accent the finger that is weakest. Let's just play C major. Oh, not there. And do it legato. Right? Bachward's fellow, you're saying 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. I have never, ever done that in my life. Chromatic, are you talking these chromatic scales? C, let's see, descending in C, 5. I'm not making any sense of that, Bachward's fellow, sorry. With the fingering that you list. So what I would do instead is, Sir Wolseley, is just accent 4 or 5, the weakest finger. Do it in scales. Do it in scales. We're gonna have 1 per octave that we get to experience that with. But and then try it in the other hand. And then in the Bergmuller. Can you play it at more speed, with more speed like that? And still accent 4. Or if we go slower. Yeah. And then we're practicing that kind of thing right in the piece of music that we're playing, and it's going to translate over into more and more pieces. Yeah, Bachward's fellow, keep explaining what you mean, because I really have C, D, E. Oh, C, D, E. Oh, C. Like that. Okay. Oh, you could combine these. I would say, so Sir Wolseley, if you want to use this kind of thing that a Bachward's fellow is talking about, it's groups of 3 notes, and then going up. I would still say, actually put an accent on 4 if you really want to bring out 4. Because if you don't do that, you still might run into a problem of 4 being weak. And just simply going through the motions is not necessarily going to make 4th finger stronger, right? We need to, if we just play, and we haven't changed our technique or our approach to it, we're going to have the same outcome as if the problem that we're facing in the repertoire itself. So yeah, you could use this, triplets, groups of 3. And then, yeah. right hand F G using fingers. Yeah, 3 4 5 3 4 5 3 4 5. That's right. And let's see. Going back, Hadar said, "Why would anybody use 4 and 5 for chromatic scales?" Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes there are some really advanced pieces where you can use a chromatic scale that starts with 4 and starts with 5. That's another thing that, gosh, it's a really advanced technique. Backwards Fellow says, try and C harmonic minor. Well, that's a finger twister. Yeah. That's a great brain workout, I'd say. And there is some interesting spread of the hand that we get to work on. Some of them are really close together, and some of them are further apart, right? Or there's D harmonic minor. That feels different too. So yeah, so Sir Woolsey, I think that's now that I understand. Thanks, Backwards Fellow, for the comment. That's also a good thing to try out. Okay. Oh, very cool, very cool. Before we call it a day today, any other questions we can tackle? Anything quick? For those of you in the U.S., I hope you have a good holiday weekend. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and if you're not in the U.S., are you doing Black Friday shopping? I think that's a thing elsewhere in the world, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, etc. So yeah, drop it in the chat if you've got a weekend shopping spree planned. Yeah, Sir Woolsey, tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the United States. Yes. So, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Hadar, for the applause. Applause for everybody. It was a great time today. Well, unless we've got any, I don't think we're gonna have any other questions. So, we're gonna call it a day today. So I am sorry that we missed 2 weeks ago. Yeah, thanks, Sir Woolsey. Have fun, everybody. Have fun with your families. 2 weeks ago we missed because I was on a plane to do a performance. So I'm hoping that we'll be back on the every other week schedule. And like I mentioned at the beginning, just pop in the community tab on the channel page to see if that's what's going on. And if there's one coming up, I'll usually post it at least a few days ahead of time. And anybody that wants to submit a video recording, you can always do that anytime. Anytime during the week, and I'll just let you know when we'll put it live and when we'll talk about it, so you can be sure and tune in, or at least catch it on the replay. Oh, backwards fellow, you've got more workouts. Try triplets in both hands, sixths in different keys. Yeah. Yeah. You can do that. You can do that. Okay, great. All right, everybody. Have a great holiday. Have fun shopping this weekend if you're going shopping. And practice smarter, not harder. I think we do a great job of that while we meet. And I'll see you next time. All right. Take care, everybody.